All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Gina Brownlee, the Sports and Wellness Director here at the JCC, and we are joined today by Rabbi Goldstein, and he is going to talk about the power of powering down to better our wellness, both mentally and physically. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Goldstein. He was ordained at the Near Israel Rabbinical College in Baltimore, Maryland. Rabbi Goldstein holds a master's degree in clinical community counseling from the Johns Hopkins University. He has a clinical experience at the Women's Correctional Facility of Jessup, Maryland, and with Orthodox adolescents at the Maryland Counseling Network in Baltimore, Maryland. He is currently the senior rabbi at the Beth Jacob Synagogue here in Columbus, Ohio. He is married and he has 7 children. Rabbi Goldstein, again, on behalf of myself and the JCC, we really appreciate you doing this for us today, and we're looking forward to your conversation.
Thank you so much, Gina. Really appreciate the introduction, and it's really an honor to participate here. With the JCC, we are the J program. I just want to give a shout out and thank you to Lisa Stavsky for helping make this connection. You picked my favorite fitness activity, which is rest. So I'm a particular expert in that one. So I thank you so much for the invitation. So the topic tonight is rest, and this is something that is a very meaningful topic in Judaism. It's the basis of Shabbat. The word Shabbat means to rest. In the Torah, it talks about menucha, it talks about Shabbos as day of rest. And particularly in our digital society that we live in today, it is more important than ever to think about this concept in a meaningful way. There's a lot of programs now that talk about unplugging, and there's a lot of science behind why that's healthy for people and mentally healthy for people and physically healthy for people. And so I want to talk about that sort of relationship, the relationship of the concept of Shabbat, of Shabbos, the Jewish day of rest, and together with the, a very important relationship to society today, especially perhaps more than ever today during this COVID time. I mean, right now we're interacting digitally, right? Everything is digital. We do Zooms, we do Google Meets, and all of our, we're on the screen. If we were on the screen before a lot, now how much more so are we on screens during this pandemic? So to think about it not only in 2021, but to think about it, especially in light of the pandemic, is a really important thing to give serious consideration to. And I think our tradition has a lot to say about this idea. And I want to share one particularly profound concept, which I think lies in Rashi, one of the classical medieval commentaries on the Torah, where commenting on the day of rest, commenting on the Shabbat. But first, let's start with the first slide. So this was like very personal to me. This slide is a picture of, oh my God, this man's having a heart attack, and then no, on his mobile network has gone down, right? So it's a cute slide that's sort of, I think, hey, I'll just wait a sec for the slide to come up. Sorry, everybody, just a technical glitch.
You're good to go, Rabbi.
Okay, great. So, this is very personal to me, this slide. A person basically looking like he's having a heart attack because his mobile network has gone down. I remember myself, I forgot exactly what the issue was, but my phone was down for 36 hours. It was very traumatic, running around trying to get it back on, and there was a problem with this, with the service that we had, and whatever, all the different things. And if you just go to the cartoon, Gina, right? This typifies our experience. People have that always feeling of people always touching for their phone, and they're connected to it, myself included. And it's just a function of how important our phones are to us, right? We're very much connected. we do so many things on them. We do business, we do fun, we do travel, we do education, we do reading, we do communication, and so many different things. And when we're without it, was like we've lost the body part, right? You don't know what to do with yourself. So this is our relationship. People have a real relationship with their technology, for better and for worse. There's a lot of incredible things we accomplished today with technology. Imagine trying to survive the pandemic without technology. It would be so much more difficult. Some of the blessings that we have in our midst. At the same time, it's an enormous challenge because we're so dependent on it. And in fact, I always marvel at the Apple Screen Time app, which tracks your screen time. I did a little research. I think the average Apple screen time pre-pandemic was 3.5 hours for an adult. And if total screen time with TV and other mediums is about 10 or 11 hours, depending on where you look. And imagine an app designed to help you not use their product, right? Apple created an app to help you limit and control your connection to the product, right? In other words, people without this product, you or your kids would be on it so much. And here they track exactly what you're doing so you can monitor it so you don't do it too much, right? Imagine the company trying to sell you the product, but warning you don't do it too much, right? It speaks to the universal recognition by the company itself of how important it is to sort of unplug at times, that we shouldn't always be so glued, so connected at the hip to our devices and our technology, our screens. So how do we balance this is an interesting question. So what's incredible about Judaism is that Judaism has such ancient wisdom from the Torah from thousands of years ago that remains so relevant today. If you could come to the next slide, Gina. This is Shabbat. We all know Shabbat. Shabbat is such a beautiful and important holiday. It's probably my favorite holiday of all the holidays, right? It comes every week, but from the Shabbos candles and Kiddush and the beautiful Friday night meal, davening and shul, right? It's such an important thing. But when we think about the holiday of Shabbat on a very basic level, the Torah says, why do we observe Shabbat? Because God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh. So we sort of replicate God's resting ourselves. God commands us the same way he rested, we should rest. And on a very basic level, it's just a time to recharge. You work throughout the week, you're very busy. You're running around from place to place. You don't have time to relax. And Shabbos comes along once a week and, take 24 hours off and relax, right? That's a very basic level. And, our tradition teaches us that this includes technology, to unplug from technology as well, that Shabbat is a day in which we don't use technology. That's also furthers this concept of rest. And that in doing, we're replicating that which God did, right? So it's a testimony, so to speak, to the creation of the world. However, there's a very, very important concept that relates to Shabbat that I'd like to touch on tonight. And that's the concept of doing versus being. Doing versus being. That's sort of a profound idea. If you go to the next slide, Gina, doing versus being. The concept of Shabbos is not simply rest. It's not simply abstain from work, but it's be in the moment, be focused, be present, right? Don't be distracted, right? When you're doing, it's very hard to be. You get caught up in the action that you're doing, the activity you're trying to accomplish, the working, the striving, the running around. And it's not only about resting and recharging batteries, but it's an opportunity to be, and it's an opportunity to reflect on the important things in life. And I'm going to dig into this in a moment. Gina, if you turn to the next slide, please, for a second. This slide is Kiddush. We all, in Jewish tradition, we say Kiddush on Friday night. What is Kiddush? It's sanctification of the day. And what it means is we demarcate verbally Shabbat from the rest of the week. We have to say, we have to speak, we have to utter words that signify that Shabbat is separate from the rest of the week. That is the concept of Kiddush. Kiddush not only means sanctification, it means designation. Shabbat is a day of designation. There's one word in Kiddush that I'd like to focus on tonight, and that is the following. If you start at the very top of the page, it says, Vayhi Erev, and you could follow along transliterated on the left or on the bottom in English. So I'm going to start from the top right in the Hebrew, and I'm going to translate. says, Vayhi erev vayhi boker yom hashishi. These are verses lifted directly from the Torah that are part of the Kiddush formula, which we recite each week. And it opens, Vayhi erev vayhi boker yom hashishi. It was evening, it was morning of the sixth day. In other words, the sixth day completed. And now Shabbat commences, right? It's taking us through that experience of the 6 days of creation leading into the seventh day. And it says, Vaychulu hashamayim v'ha'aretz v'chol tzva'am, that the heaven and the earth were completed and all of their hosts. Now, all the different things about the world were finished on the seventh day. Vayechal Elokim bayom hashvi'im lachto asher asa, that God completed on the seventh day the work that he did. Vayishbot bayom hashvi'im mikom lachto asher asa, and God ceased. He stopped doing. He rested from all the work that he did during the 6 days. Vayavarach Elokim es yom hashvi'i vayikadesh oso, that God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. Kivo Shabbat mikom lachto asher bara Elokim lasos. That is when he rested from all the work that God created us to do. In other words, God created us to do work during the 6th day. We as humans have a mandate to do work, to accomplish, to achieve. On Shabbat, we're commanded to rest, to abstain. And that is invested with holiness. So it's a very interesting concept. How do we understand this notion of abstention from work and being invested with holiness? Why does abstention from work have a correlation with being invested with holiness? Right? Abstention from work is a time to rest. Put your feet up, go to the beach, have a margarita, right? Why are we talking about investing it with holiness? I want to share with you a profound observation the Midrash makes, cited by Rashi, the 11th century scholar. If you look, stay on this slide, go back for a second, Gina, just stay with me on that slide, on the Kiddush slide, the previous slide. There we go. If you look at the third verse, so it starts by Vayhi vayhi boker yom hashishi. That's the first one. The second one is Vaychulu hashamayim v'aretz v'chol tzva'am. The third one is Vayechal Elokim bayom hashvi'im lachto asher asa, which means that God completed his work on the seventh day. And the Midrash, which is a classic Jewish exegetical commentary from about 2,000 years ago, asks a question. If rest is meant to be the abstention from work, and on the 6 days of creation God worked, and on the seventh day he abstained from work, so why do we refer to it that he completed his work on the seventh day? He completed his work on the 6th day, and then, so to speak, God put his feet up and rested on the seventh day. In what sense was the work completed on the seventh day? The work was completed on the 6th day. Why does the Torah refer to the completion of God's work on the seventh day? That's the question. And the answer, I believe, speaks to a profound nuance and something that changed my Shabbat observance, and I think can, perhaps be very meaningful to people, others as well. We're used to thinking about rest as a abstention, as something that you're not doing. And I believe what this teaches us, as the Medrash says, is that there was a proactive creation of rest on God's part. That the seventh day was not simply rest as we think of it in English, feet up on the beach, sipping a margarita, but rather it was a proactive act of creation. But how? If God didn't do anything, in what sense is it a proactive act of creation? It's not. It's something negative, not negative in a bad way, just the absence of something. In what way is it positive and proactive? And the answer is what the Medrash says, which is that on the seventh day, God saw the world was missing the notion of rest, and God creates rest. That is to say, that although rest is technically an abstention from something, when you rest properly, it's an act of creation as well, because it creates the meaning in the rest of your week. It infuses the rest of your week and everything you do with holiness. The reason why resting has a correlation with holiness is because we're talking about a proactive resting, a mindful resting, a resting that is a being instead of doing. A resting of Shabbat is a day in which we're meant to focus on why we're here and the purpose of life and what we're doing and why we do what we do during the week. And when you can concentrate on the seventh day, on those ideas, and when we can inculcate those ideas into the rest of the week and everything that we do, we've elevated everything else throughout the week. We've added to the creation of the world, so to speak, because now those days, the work I do during the week takes on a new meaning. It takes on an understanding of purpose. We understand, we're more purposeful about it. We know, why are we working? Are we just going through the motions? Are we running? Are we living a rat race? Are we waking up to go to work, to go home, to go to work, to go home, to go to work, right? What is the purpose of life? Why are we trying to achieve what are we trying to do at all? And when we think of rest, not simply as an abstention of work, but as an investiture of meaning, as a day when we can reflect upon why we're here, what we're doing here, what's God's purpose for us here, all the rest of the work takes on a whole new dimension of meaning. It's invested with a new degree of holiness. Gina, if you could turn to the next slide, I want to share with you some words from Senator Joe Lieberman. Senator Joe Lieberman wrote a very beautiful book. It's called The Gift of Rest. And it talks about how Shabbat, the observance of Shabbat, he's an Orthodox Jew, and he talks about how his personal Shabbat observance has changed his life, and how beautiful it was for him. He has an incredible story of how during the Florida recount they paused in the middle right after he got the news that the Supreme Court accepted their case in Florida to recount the votes, that he had to do Shabbat with Al Gore. And it's an incredible story. I encourage everyone, if you have a chance to buy the book, read the book. It's great. So he says the following, which really speaks to this point in an article in which he's talking about why he wrote his book. He says, what I try to do in this book is explain what I do on the Sabbath and why I do it, why it's so satisfying and meaningful to me, why it makes the work I do the other 6 days of the week so much easier, and I think so much more full of purpose, and really to offer the gift of rest to everyone who will read this book, knowing, of course, that not everyone will observe it in the traditional Jewish way, but regardless of one's religion or one's background, there's a powerful message and purpose to the gift of the Sabbath. And his point is exactly this point. What he explains was so important to him about Sabbath throughout his distinguished political career, and why it meant so much for him personally, was because having that day, and I quote, like I said, why it's so sad, why it makes the work I do it makes the work he does the other 6 days of the week so much easier, and I think so much more full of purpose, and really to offer the gift to the rest of everyone. Shabbat is a day not only of relaxing and resting, but it's a day that is meant to uplift the rest of everything we do throughout the week. It's meant to invest the rest of our week with holiness. And the rest of the week is supposed to absorb some of the holiness of Shabbat, some of the rediscovering of our values, the introspection, the family time, the connection, centering ourselves, what we're all about, why we're doing what we're doing, what is the meaning of life, what is the meaning of my relationships, what is the meaning of my job, what is the meaning of my profession, right? When we can take a moment to pause and consider these ideas and consider why God put us here, then that's an act of creation itself. That's why it says that God finished the creation on the seventh day. God didn't finish creation on the sixth day because the world was still missing rest. It was missing Shabbat. Shabbat is part of creation because that is what adds that whole additional dimension of meaning to life itself and everything we do. And I want to show you this in a very famous prayer, this concept. If we could turn to the next slide. So this is a very famous prayer recited in synagogues throughout the world on Friday night. L'cha dodi likrat kala. People sing it beautifully. It's one of our most precious, beautiful nigunim written by Rosh Shlomo Alkabetz in the 16th century in Tzfat, in Israel, and Seifed in Israel. And it describes greeting the Shabbos queen. Shabbos is described as a bride, as a queen. L'cha dodi, come my beloved, likrat kala, to greet our bride, Pnei Shabbat, the face of Shabbos. In the Kabbalah, let us receive, let us greet Shabbos. It's a very, very powerful and beautiful poem, religious poem, in which we welcome Shabbat into our midst. The ending is the climax, in which everyone turns around to the door and sort of Boi Chala, Boi Shabbos Malchus. We welcome the Shabbos queen into our synagogues. If you look at the highlighted verse, it says the following, and I want to just expound on this in light of what we've discussed. Likrat Shabbat l'chu v'nelcha, kihi mekor habracha. Let us go out and greet the Shabbos, because it is the source of blessing. And this is incredible. In Jewish tradition, and the Kabbalists, the mysticists, the Jewish mysticists, explain this on a mystical, Kabbalistic level. But even I think we can consider it rationally in light of our conversation. The concept of Shabbat is that it is Mekor HaBracha. It is the source of blessing. Shabbat is meant to be a source, a fountain of blessing that is supposed to overflow into everything we do throughout the week. That's what the words Mekor HaBracha mean. We acknowledge at the very outset of Shabbat in this prayer that if we observe Shabbat properly, if we can imbibe its messages and its values and its meaning and make that part of us, then that will be a source of blessing to the rest of the week. And on a very rational level, aside from how the mystics say that the sanctity of Shabbos stays with us and our souls are elevated and all sorts of very beautiful concepts, on a very basic level, it's what we're describing. That when we can properly unplug on Shabbat, when we can absorb not just a passive rest, not just a rest which is simply an abstention from work, but rather a proactive, creative rest, a rest that's creative, that adds to our lives, that adds meaning to our lives, adds meaning to our families, adds meaning to our kids, then Shabbos becomes the Mekor HaBracha. Then Shabbos is in fact the source of blessing, because everything we do throughout the week is in fact enriched by this observance, by this act of unplugging. And there can't be a more relevant mitzvah in the Torah. There can't be a more relevant Jewish observance for 2021. There can't be a more relevant concept to this concept of unplug, disconnect, spend 25 hours with your family alone. Don't allow your phones to interrupt with how many times in dinner are we pulled away, because we got a ding or a buzz or a ring, right? How many times are we go on vacation and we're distracted by an email and you're supposed to be spending quality time with your spouse? It's so pervasive. Technology is so pervasive and ubiquitous, and it's everywhere, and it's important, and it matters, and it's relevant, and it's cutting edge, and it's exciting, and it's dynamic, and it pulls us and it draws us. And a lot of it's great. But Shabbat is meant to restore balance in our life. It's meant to restore the harmony in our life. It's meant to bring us back to the source of the basics of why we're here, what we're doing, the foundational questions. Why did God create the world? Why are we here? What is our purpose? And so this is the idea of Shabbat. Shabbat is the most relevant of all holidays to 2021. There can't be a more important concept. And when we think about wellness and restfulness, there can't be a more important concept, because the difference between living a harried life and a stressful life and feeling like you're overwhelmed and pulled in all these different directions is whether or not you're doing those things purposefully and intentionally and meaningfully or not. And when we invest the rest of our week with meaning, then we understand why we're doing what we're doing. When we understand why we're working and why we're working so hard and why we're schwitzing and why we're going through all these things and why, and we can connect it to something deeply meaningful, then it's not stressful anymore. Or maybe it's less stressful. Maybe we have a different take on it. Maybe we have a different perspective. And that's the concept of Shabbat. There is no greater mechanism for wellness, I submit, in 2021 than the notion of Shabbat, the notion of resting on Shabbat, and the notion of unplugging. There's no better way to spend quality time with your family. There's no better time to spend quality time with the kids. I mean, I'll just give you one example. There's such a beautiful custom on the outset of Shabbat that we give our kids a blessing. We place our hands on them. We say, may God make, to boys, we say, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh, the tribes of Israel. We to our daughters, we say, you should make them like the Jewish matriarchs. Make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. And then we pray to God, bless them. When do you do that? We don't do that during the week. God should bless you and guard you. He should shine his light on you. I mean, who takes the time to do that? And it's such a powerful moment when we invest our kids and we think of our kids and we wish the best for them. I mean, it's such a special second. And this is what Shabbat is all about. It's about a creative work, not a passive work, not a negative, not in a bad way. Excuse me. It's about a creative resting, not a negative absence of work, but about a proactive work that's meant to infuse the rest of our life with spirituality and meaning and bring more purposefulness and intentionality to the things that we do throughout the week. And in so doing, we're less harried, we're more appreciative, and we just become altogether better people. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's a real honor. I hope that the people had a appreciation of Shabbat from this. I'm happy to take any questions, or if anything that people have, I'm happy to talk about it, or anything else.
All right, thank you very much, Rabbi Goldstein. That was wonderful. It was kind of a nice way of thinking about resting. It's not always just sitting on the beach. It's what you do with that rest, how you reflect on your life and in the lives of your family and stuff. So thank you. Well, I've got a few questions here. What suggestions do you have for people that think this is impossible? I can't disconnect, for 24 hours. My email's going to blow up. My texts are going to blow up. It's just not worth my time to do it. What do you say to encourage those people to just give it a try?
Listen, it's tough. There's no question about it. It's tough. I was on a trip to Israel a few years ago, and a number of people that had never observed Shabbat for the first time did that. And it was like these moments where you saw people having like the separation anxiety with their phone, like they couldn't, and some people did it. And, I think initially it creates some stress. That's for sure true. Like, how are you disconnected? Think back to that cartoon at the beginning, and, but like anything else, life's about priorities and how you choose to prioritize what you do and the decisions you make. And it's not easy. At home I bought, which I wish I used more, but I bought a like special box, not for Shabbat, but for the week, for dinner time during the week, a place to put my phone. So there's a designated area to put my phone down. So like, I don't get it when it's in there, I don't use it enough. I'm guilty too, but definitely not holier than thou with disrespect. Just ask my family. But the concept I think is important. I think the concept of having a designated area, perhaps, to put it down might be a strategy that a person can use. But no doubt to get into it is hard. With everything, you need to start slow. But it's life changing.
Do you find yourself maybe taking a time out each day, like you mentioned at the dinner table or whatever, maybe other times during the day that you disconnect? I mean, during Shabbat, it's, 25 hours, but do you feel like you try to find that time each day to do that? And is that very helpful for you?
Yeah, I try and find moments of reflection and just, and just sort of silence and not doing, just sort of being. I don't really put my phone there, but sort of moments of being rather than doing. I think that's important to my daily wellness and schedule.
Great. What would you say, or what would you suggest a allotted amount of time each day that a person should disconnect, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's kind of whatever you need? Have you found a secret to it, I guess?
Listen, I'm not better than anyone else. Everyone has the problem, but the only thing I would say is that like it's super important, like during dinner or to be with your family, and when you're spending time with your family, not to allow yourself to be distracted at those moments. And it's hard. It's so hard. Everyone has the beeps and the rings and the and the zillion texts, and and people are busy, and it's a real challenge today for everyone. It's a real challenge, and I just try and prioritize those times with family, and I try and turn it off when I'm praying in synagogue, and those moments are are sort of try and cut out some of that noise.
Very good. Was there any lasting comments that you would like to leave us with tonight, Rabbi?
There's nothing more beautiful in Judaism than a Friday night dinner with your family in the synagogue. And for me, always, since I was a little boy, I always remember just those moments and those impressions, the most exciting and the most special time. And I would just encourage anyone that hasn't had an authentic Shabbat experience. There are many ways where I'd be happy to help. And anyone that wants to get experience a Shabbat dinner, we're happy to set them up with it. It's just, there's nothing more powerful than that. And, if you haven't done it, just try Friday night and, go to check out synagogue Friday night, check out whatever synagogue you go to, check out synagogue and check out Friday night dinner and challahs of Shabbat. It's such a beautiful experience. It's priceless.
Well, again, Rabbi, thank you so much for your time tonight. The JCC and myself, we really appreciate it. And we look forward to maybe hopefully having some more chats with you. So
Yeah, thank you so much, Gina. I appreciate the opportunity.
We